principal at IHS Markit, and Tom is going to speak with you today about increasing marketing efficiency by identifying key industry trends. So please give a warm welcome to Tom. Tom?
Good afternoon. Thanks very much for coming, for taking time away from your meal, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be very brief. I did want to point out a couple things about our data, because you see a lot of data and you might be wondering what is the methodology, so on and so forth. As was mentioned before, in 2013, Polk, RL Polk was purchased by IHS Automotive. However, the whole Polk infrastructure, including the way we get data, the way we process data, the way we provide data to our clients, has remained the same. And the great thing about the data you're about to see, which is really terrific, is we buy these data directly from every state every month. So there's no sample size, there's no survey. With all due respect to other companies, these are the registrations that were processed at each capital in all 50 states. And I know a couple of members of the team that goes around and buys these data, negotiates contracts with every state every month. And it's a laborious, expensive process, but we do get every registration new and used every month. So it's actual registration data. So with that, I'll jump right into it. I'm only going to show you 5 trends. I think you'll find them interesting. A couple of them will be somewhat counterintuitive. So first of all, and this is a very, very brief trend, but to show you about how the industry is doing, the solid bars are actual and the dotted bars are forecast. So this is going to be the 5th year in a row with sales above 17 million. Unprecedented achievement. Actually, 3 years in a row was unprecedented, 4, and no, we're going to have 5. So despite all of the concerns, the tension, the uncertainty, et cetera, we've had an extraordinary run, and we're still in terrific times for the industry. However, this year is going to be down slightly, and also the main point of the slide is we've plateaued. We're no longer growing. So for marketers who are hoping to grow share or grow sales volume, it's not going to come through the growth of the industry. It's going to have to come out of somebody else, which is important to bear in mind in the other trends. So then the second trend is talking about loyalty. I work in loyalty all the time. It's very, very interesting. Mr. Sprague pointed out very accurately some of the numbers about loyalty, which I was pleased to see. But this is brand loyalty. The upper green line is brand loyalty, and I have there the Q2 numbers for this year and then going back years, and the lower line is model loyalty. So the key takeaway here is loyalty is at an all-time high, at least as long as we've been tracking these numbers. But so you have it at 54.2%. That means 54% of all the households that come back to market and get another vehicle acquire the same brand. And the same logic holds for model loyalty. So this is great news in a way, and that loyalty is very high, but it's actually a challenge for marketers because if everybody's sticking and you want to grow, how do you get them if they're sticking with what they have and what they like? We have, you can see here, this difference between a year ago and now is 0.6 percentage points, but that translates to 54,000 units, 54,000 households that are staying that didn't a year ago. And that actually is an impressive number when you realize that the average model sales in a year are 47,000. So more than an entire average model yearly sales are households that are sticking. So again, it's a challenge for marketers like yourselves to want to grow a brand and need to conquest. So we actually have a way to look forward and how to conquest, and I wanted to point that out to you. So the Polk data goes way back. It goes back before the year 2000. One of the features, one of the great benefits of having a long history of data is we're able to look at households' buying behavior going way back. And actually, it's fascinating stuff. We are able to bucket households into one of 3 groups. And those are the 3 groups. And the nomad, which is the high bar, the light green line, those are households, when they return to market, they've only had that brand once. So they're nomadic. Loyalists have had the same brand twice, and super loyalists have had the same brand 3 times. It's important to bear in mind that these acquisitions have to be the most recent ones. It can't be 3 in a row 30 years ago. It's got to be the most recent acquisitions. 3 in a row, 2 in a row, or just once. So you might be thinking, well, that's really interesting, but who cares? Well, actually, this is the main point. Look at the difference in loyalty between the super loyalists and the nomads. super loyalists, on average, are 71% likely to get that same brand again. And look at these data. Look at those numbers in the orange box. Ford households who've had 3 Fords in a row, 77% are going to get another Ford. Again, bear in mind, the industry brand loyalty number is 54. You very, very rarely see 77%. Extraordinary numbers. So why is that important? The reason why that's important is because, frankly, if you're with a competitor Ford, you don't want to waste your time going after those super loyalists because they're not going to switch. So if you're doing a mass marketing effort, there's some inefficiency if you're going to be including those super loyalists because you're not going to get them. So we actually recommend that you focus on the nomads because the nomads are the least loyal, the most likely to switch. So that's a way to proceed with conquesting that's more efficient than perhaps you've been using. So looking at the third trend, of course, any presentation wouldn't be appropriate if we didn't talk about SUVs, but there's some interesting things about SUVs. First of all, this is the actual registration share for SUVs. This is total registration, so it includes fleet and retail. But nevertheless, you'll notice here that there is a plateauing taking effect, and you can see on the lower right there the year-over-year growth. And that's the year-over-year change in share, by the way. That's the percent change in market share. But anyway, the really interesting thing here is that we are seeing a slowing down in the growth of SUVs. And yes, it is still growing, but it's growing much slower than it used to. This, by the way, includes frame-based as well as crossovers. Okay, so this is a fascinating thing about SUVs. So this is the number of models coming, and I start out with pickups. We got this from my forecasting practice, IHS automotive forecasting practice. You can see pickups went down, but then it came back up slightly, and you can see that sedans, as everybody knows, is going down. This is the number of models on the market. But look at SUVs. So we're going to see from this year to 2025, that's the addition of 70 models by the year 2025. Put that together with the fact that the SUV share is growing up very slowly, and you have a real challenge for all the brands is how to, first of all, there's going to be some compression. There are going to be some models that used to sell 300,000 are going to come down inevitably. And this is a real challenge for new models coming out of the market. You have a huge saturation taking place in the SUV crossover space. So also, we wanted to point out that there are 47 million SUV households right now in existence. And you can see the breakdown there, 5.8 luxury, 41.3 non-luxury. Of those, 16.8 million right now have no brand loyalty. They fall into that nomadic category. They are ideal prospects for a conquesting campaign. Okay, then moving on to discontinued brands. This came up this morning, and this is a really interesting subject. There's a lot of opportunity here. So first of all, these are the volumes of households of the discontinued brands that we believe, based on our purchase predictor model, will be in market in the next 6 months. So you might be saying to yourself, well, you know, Pontiac, there's these Pontiac households, it's 30 years old, they're never going to get another one, blah, blah, blah. No. This is Pontiac households who we predict will be in the market in the next 6 months. You can see all the numbers. They add up to approximately 1.4 million. There's a couple brands we didn't put on here because it's a very, very small volume. But this is a real opportunity. I mean, these brands, these households cannot go back to the same brand. The other thing I wanted to point out is Pontiac, this is manufacturer loyalty, 49%. That's a very low number for manufacturer loyalty. What that says is that there's a lot of opportunity here because these are nomadic households in general with low loyalty. I would also point out, by the way, that if you're looking at GM, I would be going after those Pontiac households and also the Saturn households very, very strongly because they already have some affiliation with your organization. Okay, so then let's look at models. So these are all the discontinued sedans. We've all read about all the sedans that are going away or have gone away or whatever. This is a list of them. I might have missed one or two, but this is hopefully all of them. And these 7 million households, comes from these discontinued sedans that are also marketable households. And I wanted to point out, by the way, that 44% of sedan households get another sedan. Extraordinary. Everybody says sedans are going away. they're not going away, and there's some brands represented in this room here that know that they're not going away. 44% is a pretty robust number. Almost half of the households out there that have a sedan in the garage will come back and get another one. A lot of opportunity here for brands that have a sedan in the market, including the Asians and some Europeans. Okay, so moving on to the last trend. This is luxury, and I work with the luxury data a lot, very interesting data. But I just wanted to point out a couple things about the luxury market. Mr. Sprague talked about it earlier. First of all, these are the brands that we have in luxury right now. 16 brands we categorize as luxury. A little bit of debate, should Buick be on there or not? We don't include Buick, so on and so forth. But those are 16 brands. That's going to change. It's going up to 20. And we add those 4 brands in the lower right there, which will bring it up to 20. So luxury is going to get even more competitive than it used to be. Luxury is about 12, 13% of the market, brutally competitive, as everybody working in that space knows. So this is to me, this is fascinating stuff. This is not new to me because I work with this data all the time. This shows the percent of households that have a luxury vehicle in the garage that go to non-luxury. In other words, they defect from luxury to non-luxury. Look at those numbers, 39%. But even more amazing is, look at the numbers that are going the other way. So you have almost half of the households coming into luxury coming from non-luxury. What is my point here? My point here is that there's a lot of dynamics, a lot of interaction between luxury and non-luxury, and frankly, some of the luxury makes are not aware of that. I work a lot with my luxury clients, and I will frequently hear the comment, well, we really compete with BMW, Lexus, and Mercedes. And that's nice, but that's not always true. If you look at the actual vehicles that are coming in conquest and going out, I'll tell you a couple examples. I do these inflow charts and outflow charts. You can look at all the models coming into a brand, all the models going out, and I'll tell you the Jeep Grand Cherokee is on every chart I do. And so, frankly, on a lot of the charts, frankly, and they're surprised by it, is the Wrangler. So anyway, my point here is that if a luxury brand just looks at its luxury competitors, I think it is missing part of the picture. It's important to bring in non-luxury, and I'm speaking about Jeep, and I'm also speaking about Honda and Toyota in particular. Okay, so then one other thing I wanted to point out, and this is really interesting, but the reason why manufacturers have luxury brands, part of it's prestige, but a huge reason is the finances. OEMs make a lot more money on the luxury vehicles than they do on the mainstream vehicles. We see that because all the OEMs go into luxury. We saw that just recently with Hyundai, which created Genesis. They're doing that because of the money involved, the profits. What's sad here is that the step up, this is the percent of households in a brand, in a mainstream brand, that go up to the luxury brand. All of the, Audi wants the VW households to move up to Audi. These numbers are tiny, to be frank with you. The only two above 5% are VW and Toyota, but even so, 6%. This means that only 6% of VW households that go to another brand go up to Audi. To me, huge opportunity here. I mean, to me, and this is, by the way, is to any vehicle. It doesn't mean they had a car, they got another car, they had an SUV, they got another SUV. This means going up to any vehicle, tiny numbers. Huge amount of potential here, I think, for the luxury brands to tap into their internal mainstream brands. And I just had one other thing I wanted to show you. I find this really fascinating. One of the great things we can do with our data is we can take any cohort, any combination of attributes you want, demographics, geography, body style, fuel type, et cetera, et cetera. We can create a profile of a household, garage household. And we can see where they went when they come back to market. And it's great stuff. Again, you can pick out any profile you want. And so what I did here was I looked at these 4 brands and said, okay, if there's a sedan in the household of these brands, what percent go to a sedan when they come back to market? Because I wanted to find out, okay, is this thing really true? Is everybody going from a sedan to an SUV? Well, what's fascinating here is you look at the right-hand side. The percent going from a sedan to another sedan had been going down, but now it's going back up. Now, this is apples to apples. This is August year-to-date for all 4 years, so it's apples to apples. There's no timing issue here. But this is fact, that the percent going to another sedan is now starting to go back up. Also, I've run this for other brands, and for the luxury market overall, it's also true that it's going back up. For the mainstream market, it's going down still, but at a much, much slower rate. So we see a decline in the percent going to SUVs, and the percent going to sedans is starting to go back up. So, that's all I had. Just to recap, First of all, the industry's plateaued. Second of all, loyalty is at an all-time high. Third of all, SUVs now are going to have much, much more competition. We see discontinued brands, huge opportunity. And lastly, loyalty has a lot of issues, and there's a lot of dynamics between loyalty and non-loyalty. So I wanted to be quick so you could have time to network and also have your lunch. And so I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you, Bill. That speaker is